Okay, so good morning.
Good morning,
Today's
Kodesh.
good morning and good Kodesh. Absolutely. Today's daf is a Nedarim daf Lamed 30, and we learned a Mishnah on the bottom of daf Kaf Chet Amud Aleph, and that Mishnah had a number of rules in it. The one that is relevant for our discussion at the moment is that if you were to say, presumably you're like, as we said, you're in a big wind, and the expectation is your trees are going to fall, and you basically say, listen, God, if you don't knock down these trees, then I'm going to donate them to the Beit HaMikdash. So that's the motivation, I think, of these statements. And so you say these saplings are an offering until they fall. Meaning, look, God, if here's the deal, I'm going to donate this. But the key is that in this case, you say until they fall. You don't say if they don't fall. So that's what's going to trigger our discussion. So Bar Pada says, listen, you said that they're Kodesh until they fall. That means that if you redeem it before it fell, then it goes back to being Kodesh again. Whereas Ula, and the only time that it does not stay Kodesh is if it falls, and then you'll only have to redeem it once. Ula, however, disagrees. It's not completely clear whether he disagrees with both rules, meaning that if you redeem it beforehand, it needs to be redeemed again. But the simplest read, I believe, of the Gemara is that he agrees with that statement, but he disagrees with Parpada's statement regarding once they fall. Because Ula says, listen, the person says that these saplings are an offering until they fall. So once they fall, they're no longer an offering. And Bar Pada is upset with that, because how does something that was once Kodesh become not Kodesh? You need to do something about it. So as a result, that's the disagreement. Now, again, it could also be that Ula would say that even if they were redeemed before they fall, they would no longer become sanctified, because you can't make something sanctified in the future that you are not doing right now. In any event, we're now going to try to apply this to marriage. And so we are going to have an interesting situation. So we're 3 lines up on Kaftet Amabet. So Yosef Rabbi Avin for Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Rebbe Kamei de Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Avin and Rabbi Yitzchak, the son of Rebbe, were sitting in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah. The common name, and they, becoming a name Rabbi Yirmiyah, and Rabbi Yirmiyah was resting, was dozing. He was not necessarily paying full attention to them. So what do? They began a discussion. Look, if the Rebbe isn't there, so then people will talk. Now, the beautiful thing here is that they're talking in Torah. So what do they talk? So the Kamre, they were telling each other, Labar Panda, that in fact, according to Bar Pada, the Amar Padaan Chozos V'Kochos, and he says that if you redeem it, it will once again become holy before it falls. So we turn to Lamed Amud Aleph. So Tivsho Deboy Rav Hoshia, maybe we can answer a question that Rav Hoshia asked. So what was the question that Rav Hoshia asked? So Hanosein Shtei Prutos Leisha V'Amarla. If one were to give 2 prutot, meaning twice the amount that one needs in order to marry a woman, you would give that to the woman. But and one says the following: Ba'achas hiskadshi li hayom. One of them is you being used to marry you today. Uva'achas hiskadshi li la'achar garshech, and one of them is being used to marry you after we divorce. So as a result, just as we say that the tree, when the tree is redeemed, it bounces back into hektish. So too, in this situation, it would also bounce back into the woman's sanctified status as a married woman. So, itar behu Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah, who was dozing, wakes up a little bit and realizes the conversation and understands what has been discussed, and says, Amar lahu, he says to them, my kamidamisan pidan hu lefidum acherim. How can you compare a case where the person himself redeems the saplings and where a case where other people redeem? So what were and let's just explain what that means, because Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because this is what Rabbi Yochanan said in connection with our story, and in presumably in connection with Rabbi Padan Barpada's explanation of the story. So what did Rabbi Yochanan say? Pida'an, if one redeems them, who achos rosu kedushos. If he redeems them, so then it becomes consecrated again. But pida'um acherim ein chos rosu kedushos. But if somebody else redeems them, then they don't become holy. The isha kipidua acherim damya, and for a woman, it's like she was redeemed by others when she gets divorced. So let's understand that. Well, let's take a look at a couple of Rans, and that will help us understand this whole situation. So we'll start with the Ran at the very end of the narrow lines in the Ran. And it says, Tivsho Dubai Rav Oshia v'chulu, Hachinami dehavu kedusha. So this was the initial thought that the fellows had, when they were having the discussion while Rabbi Yirmiyah was dozing, that what did they think? Just like we had in our Mishnah, that you are able to sanctify these saplings after you go and redeem them. V'chayla kedusha alayhu, and that kedusha, that holiness, does affect them, does go back on them. Even though I don't once again go back and redeem them after I had, even though I don't go back and sanctify them a second time, meaning it's my sanctification at this moment that is going to cause them to be sanctified again after I redeem them. Not something that I'm going to do. Of course, everybody would say that if I sanctify them after I redeem it, it would be good. But the point is that I'm sanctifying them now for after I redeem them. So hachinami chaylik kedusha. So too, when it comes to kedushin, when it comes to marriage, ki amar la'achar she'agershecha. If I say that you're going to marry me again after we divorce, even though he doesn't do a new action. So I might think that should work based on this. So, and then Rabbi Yirmiyah responds, Lo shanu ela pidam hu. No, the whole story is where he does the redemption. But when the woman goes out of a marriage because of the divorce, that's different. Since the man himself redeemed those saplings, ula olam lo yatsu netios halal mirishus hektish o mirishuso, since they only go back and forth between hektish and his possession, I might have thought that that's the basis for our saying that when it bounces into his possession, he could bounce it back into hektish. So, din hu shiahu chosros ukdushos. In that situation, he has the ability to make it go back to kedusha. Aval pida'um acherim. But when other people redeem those saplings, afilu hechisum achar kain lirshuso. So if after I if I say about these saplings that they are going to be hektish until they fall, and now after I make them hektish that first time, they're still standing, Stan comes in and buys them from the Beis Hamikdash. So, and then he says, you know what, David, I really don't want them any longer. Why don't you buy them from me? And now I buy them from him. So one might have thought that since they're back into my possession, and my original statement was that they're hektish until they fall, maybe it goes back to them being hektish. So ein chosros v'kedoshos, and the Ran is telling us they don't go back because they stopped for a time in Stan's possession. Because the moment that someone else, in this case Stan, redeems them, nistalik rishus balam harishonim, the end of my connection with these netios has happened, and so I no longer have a connection to them, and as a result, my original statement that they should be hektish until they fall no longer applies. Because at the moment, and why is it that my original statement no longer applies? Because there's a moment at which it cannot apply, namely when it's in Stan's possession. So basar shaisa nami keshehechnisum acherim l'rshuso lo chayil. So as a result, when it comes back to me, it's no longer applicable. V'isha nami kivedua acherim dami. And now the Rabbi Yirmiyah says, and you know what? When the woman is divorced, it's as if somebody else has redeemed her. Because when the moment that she gets divorced, she goes into her own possession. Now, the Ran, now in one of the well-known Rans of Maseches Nedarim, points out, asks the question, I don't understand. Maybe you could say that there's no difference between these two situations, because in the hektish situation, it's bouncing between my possession and hektish. And in the marriage situation, it's bouncing between the husband's rishus, the husband's domain, and the wife's domain. So let it bounce between those two possessions. So the Ran introduces an amazing concept, and he says that marriage actually involves a third possession, a third category. That when a woman gets married, it's not simply a movement from her possession into the husband's possession, but rather there's a moment at which she exits her own possession and she makes herself effectively available to anyone. And only then, when she goes from this hefker situation, a situation where she's not in anyone's rule, and then she goes to her husband's situation. And so as a result, if it were to be somehow possible for her to bounce between his possession and the hefker situation, well, then maybe the marriage ahead of time would work, according to the analogy. But given the fact that she goes back into her own possession, so as a result, the Ran explains that's why this is different from a case of the case of the saplings. So that's why it's different from the case of the saplings. Okay, so yes, please.
For a get to be valid, it has to make the former wife permitted to marry any man.
Correct.
So if she's automatically married after the divorce, according to this idea, she's not permitted to any man, and therefore the get could not have taken effect.
Well, that would be interesting, because then you would say that there's no possibility of getting divorced. So
yeah,
I think that the simple answer is that she's technically available at the moment that she gets it, but it's as if he has immediately given, with the divorce, new marriage papers, and so as a result, it's automatically restarted. So I mean, it's clear that that's the way the Ran interprets it. That certainly everybody is agreeing that the marriage, and in fact, my understanding is though I did not see it inside, that the Rambam actually paskins that if in fact the person gets divorced, he needs to get divorced twice. He needs to give a get and then a second get in order to divorce the wife in this situation. So, okay, but it's not a perfect answer, I recognize, but clearly at least some of the poskim understand that she has to redeem herself. So, okay, so now that we've gone through all of that, so let me scroll up the screen. So we're up to the next Mishnah. So now, oh no, so not quite, because let's do the final little piece of Gemara. So Itmer Nami, and so in fact we are confirming that the proof from Rabbi Padan is not a good proof, because Rabbi Ami said the following: Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan has said, "Lo shanu ela shepadan hu aval padam acherim ein chosros ketushos." That in fact the whole situation is dealing where he redeems those saplings, but if somebody else were to redeem them, then they become consecrated again. So, okay, so now let's jump in straight into the next Mishnah. And the next Mishnah and the next series of Mishnayos are definitional, meaning we're going to talk about the usage of a particular term and the scope of that term. What does it include? What does it exclude? And so let's jump right in and talk about the term Yordei Hayam, those who go out to sea, here defined as seafarers. So Hanoder mi Yordei Hayam, if somebody says that they're not going to benefit from any using a neder, they're not going to benefit from anybody who goes out to sea. These seafarers, mutter biyoshvei hayabasha, you're allowed to benefit from people who dwell on land. Miyoshvei hayabasha, but if you were to prevent yourself from benefiting from those who dwell on land, asurim miyardei hayam, you can't even benefit from those who are regularly at sea. Why? Because people who go to sea come back to land, and they're included in the people who live on land. Nobody essentially lives on sea alone in this view. And then we have a third and final statement, unclear, and indeed the Gemara is going to discuss which of the statements within the Mishnah, the first two statements of the Mishnah, it modifies. And lo ke'elu sheholchin ma'ako liyafo ela b'misha darko lefarish. And it doesn't, and this concept doesn't apply to those who are traveling the short distance from Akko to Yafo, but rather those who are traveling for a longer sea trip. So let's take a look. We'll look this time in the Mefarish, the Rashi, on the right-hand side of the page. Hanoder if you're that, because he does a nice job of simply explaining the Mishnah. So if one makes the neder that they're not going to benefit from those who go to sea, mutter lehanot miyoshvei hayabasha, you're allowed to benefit from those who live on land. And if you swear off benefiting from those who live on land, Asar lihanos miyardei hayam. You can't even benefit from those who go to sea. Sheheinami miyoshvei hayabasha hein shesofan letzeis, because eventually they leave their ship and they come back onto land. Masha Amar Yordei Hayam Beklal Yoshvei Hayabasha, and that which we define that Yordei Hayam, that those who go to sea are in the category, and that's what we're talking about when we say that those who go to sea are in the category of people who live on land. And lo ke'elu yordei. Now, when we say that, lo ke'elu yordei hayam ha'holchim ma'ako liyafo, we're not talking about people who go to sea for a short trip like Akko to Yafo. She'ein beinehem ela mahalach yom echad. That's just a day trip. Uba and mehera, and therefore they come very quickly liyabasha, to the land. Dahavu b'klal yoshvei hayabasha, meaning if you don't stay overnight in your boat, you are not a person who is a seafarer. And so, therefore, that's the modification that the Mefarish is offering. Now,
how are you translating Yoshvei? Yoshvei haaretz. What is this?
Yoshvei hayabasha. Yoshvei hayabasha are people who dwell on dry land.
Isn't that everybody?
Yes. Well, yes, as we just defined it, 100%.
So it's not going to get benefit for any person.
Correct. Now, the Rishonim ask, I don't understand, won't that be a shvuas shav? So people modify it to say that it must be that in order to avoid it being a shvuas shav, we're talking about somebody who makes it based on a certain amount of time. And really, the concept here, we're not analyzing the concept of a person who actually makes such a shvua, we're really analyzing this language. So
Neder.
one could what?
Neder or shvua?
Neder. No, I'm sorry. This kind of neder. The point is that when one makes this neder of avoiding benefit, you can put in lots of qualifications. You could say Yoshvei Hayabasha in this year. You could say Yoshvei Hayabasha. So, but the point is when you say Yoshvei Hayabasha, what do you mean? So that we're just trying to explain that. We're not analyzing in detail the ramifications of one who makes this oath.
I understand, but so if I say Yoshvei Hayabasha, I'm basically
You're referring to all of humanity.
all you because everybody lives on land.
Correct. In fact, you may be referring to all land-dwelling animals. We will see. I don't know.
That's true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It may
So,
be
all right.
not fish.
Exactly. And we'll see that, in fact, there will be a category when we talk about all who see the sun. We're going to end up excluding fish because they live under the sea. Okay, so Rav Papa. So now the Gemara is trying to understand this last statement. On what part of the Mishnah was it modifying? So Rav Papa, Rav Acha, Breda, Rav Ika. So they argue about it. So Chad Masne Aresha, one teaches it about the Resha, and V'chad Masne Aseifa, and one teaches it about the Seifa. And now the Gemara explains how they would each learn it. So Madatani Aresha Masne Hach, the one who teaches it about the first part of our Mishnah would teach the following: Hanoder Meyorde Hayam. Mutter b'yoshvei hayabasha. Again, one who swears off benefiting from those who dwell at sea is allowed to benefit from those who dwell on land. Ha b'yordei hayam asur. And now, when it says that we're not allowed to benefit from those who dwell at sea, the lo ke'elu, it does not mean the people who hahochem me'ako liyafo, who travel from Akko to Yafo, because those people don't actually live at sea because they don't spend a night at sea. Because those people really dwell on land. But rather, when we say the person swearing off that benefit, it actually swears off the benefit of those only who go to sea for a longer period of time. And those who, and the one who learns it on the, so, and the key is that you would be able to benefit, according to this, from those who take short journeys by sea. Whereas, the one who learns it on the end of the Mishnah would say the following: the ones who dwell on sea, the ones who make a neder, who say that they're not going to benefit from anybody who dwells on land, on dry land, they are prohibited to benefit even from those who dwell at sea. And not only those who travel short distances, meaning that's also included in sea, but even those who take longer trips. Because in the end, they will eventually come to land. So according to the person who learns this modification on the Seifa of our Mishnah, what we're coming to say is that the machlokas between these two opinions is whether somebody who goes from Akko to Yafo is prohibited for somebody who says that they won't benefit from somebody who dwells on sea. According to the first opinion, that group of people is not considered a seafaring dwelling, and so as a result, they are not prohibited. Well, a person would not be prohibited to benefit from them, even though they prohibited themselves from benefiting from seafarers. According to the second opinion, however, the people who do not go to sea for a long period of time, they go only from Akko to Yafo, they are still considered seafarers, and as a result, you would not be able to benefit from.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the Gemara doesn't get into like, okay, so what if it's a longer trip, like a 3-day trip or something, or 4,
I think that based on the Mefarish, it seems like they're cutting the threshold as do you spend overnight? Is it more than a full day such that you would need to spend nighttime on the boat? That seems to be the threshold. That once you spend a night, that's so they don't need to say if it's a longer trip, because
These are,
anything where you actually spend the night, that would make you a seafarer according
these are
to the.
people who are doing like commercial trading or something like that. They're going all the time.
Yeah, so I think again, if you're going all the time, but you go every day individually, it doesn't sound like, according to the again, this seems to be the machlokes of the for of these two Amoraim, Rav Papa and Rav Acha. So that one of them says that all you have to do is spend a lot of time at sea, and the other one says no, you need to sleep at sea. That's the basic machlokes and of how we read this Gemara. And so, according to the first opinion, you have to spend a night at sea, and according to the second opinion, no. As long as you spend a lot of time at sea, you're considered a seafarer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we get to the next mission. The mission first at the top of near the top of Lamed Amud Bet, and we say Hanoder Miroe Achama. If you pronounce that, you say that you're not going to benefit from those who see the sun. Asar af besumin, you cannot benefit even from those who are blind. Shalonis kavenzeh elamisha hachama roa osam, because the intention of those who see the sun is really whom do the sun see, right? So the point is as long as the sun sees the person, even if the person can't actually see, that person is covered. All right, and so now the Gemara explains why this particular scope. So my time, well, what's the reason that we're explaining it that way? Because midalo ka'amar min haroin. Because if what you're really trying to say is those who are capable of seeing the sun, well, then that refers to everybody who actually can see. So just say those who can see. And so as a result, that's why it must be that we're referring to those who actually are seen by the sun. And who does that exclude? La puke dagem ve'ubarim. It excludes fish and fetuses, the babies before they're born. So, of course, you can ask, how do you benefit from a fetus? So either it's talking about, meaning it means that when that fetus is eventually born, you're no longer covered. So anybody who is born after you make the oath, you would be allowed to benefit from. And again, of course, fish are below the sun's surface, and the point is that you would be able to presumably benefit from them even after you fish them and pull them out of the water. Okay, so
I question, my Hebrew grammar is not good. Hachama, is that nominative case or objective case in the Mishnah?
Yeah, so you're gonna have to define those terms, because my grammar is even worse than yours.
The subject clearly. Or the object in the sentence?
Okay, yeah.
Looks like it's this.
It is definitely intended as the object, but we are saying that effectively it becomes the subject. That's precisely what we're doing here.
Yeah,
we have turned it from the object of the clause to the subject of the clause.
Right.
And because if you wanted it to be the object of the clause, you would have just said, because everybody sees the sun. So as a result, we would say that it refers to everybody.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, everybody who can see the sun. And so as a result, if you meant literally what you said, you would just say haroin. Okay. Meaning anybody who can see. All right, so next Mishnah, as we continue this series of definitional Mishnayot, Hanoder Mishchorei Harosh, if you say that I'm going to not benefit from those who are black in the head, so what does it mean to be black? So Asar Bekorchen Uvale Sebos, that you would also be forbidden to benefit from those who are bald and those who have white hair. And you are permitted to benefit from women and children. Because only grown men are referred to as those who have darkened hair. So now the question is darkened heads. So the question is why is that? And that, of course, is the Gemara's opening question. So my timer, what's the reason for this? Why do we interpret it this way? So Midalo Kambar Mibale Sayar, because look, if you wanted to include anybody with hair or black hair, well, then you would have referred to the hair itself, and that would have defined it for you. And it's interesting to think, because of course this clearly has a sense of all Jews looking alike and all having black hair. But in any event, the point is that you would, if because you chose a different term, we understand that you must mean something different. And now the Gemara is going to explain how come it doesn't include women and children. So umuter benashim v'ketanim she'ein nikrin shchorei harosh ela anashim, because again, the Mishnah, as the Mishnah said, only men are called these people with black heads. So my time, what's the reason? Because anashim zimnim de mikaso rashayhu v'zimnim de megala rashayhu. Because when it comes to adult men, sometimes they have uncovered heads and sometimes they have covered heads. Aval nashim la'olam mikasu, but women always cover their heads. Uketanim la'olam migalu, and children always uncover their heads. And so as a result, it basically you do the math, it can't, and so as a result, we have simple clauses that could refer to men, to children, namely those who don't cover their head, and we have a simple clause that could cover women, those who do cover their head, and we don't have a simple clause for men with respect to covering the head, because it's hard, because apparently people wouldn't just call men people who cover their head sometimes. So as a result, we use dark-headed as opposed to these other terms, because we clearly intend to only include adult men. So, all right, so that's, again, we're going to see in the next one the clearest explanation of how come we're going to say, what's driving all of this. So,
what is this thing about women only
comment?
covering-
okay,
women
hold
always
first
cover their
Kanan, and then
hair?
go ahead, Charlie. So Kanan, go ahead, please.
What is this covering their hair? They always cover their hair? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what it says. So it's kind of confused. I mean,
What?
there are a couple of different
Where's
ways to
that coming from?
understand what.
Where is that coming from?
Yeah, if it's referring to married women, so then it's easy,
Yeah,
right?
but
So because all married women need to cover their hair,
not
I think that's
not in private.
true, but from the neder taker's position, right? All women cover their hair from their perspective. So again, it's not
fine. But we
it's
don't
not-
know that. I mean, the Gemara, they don't prove that from the Gemara. I mean, we know that maybe. I mean,
yeah. I mean, the Gemara, I think it's in Shabbos, talks about how women cover their hair. So I mean, it's not. But it is
But
a
single
problem.
women don't, though. But I mean, so.
Yes, 100%. I don't think that this would work. This phrase would not work today. You wouldn't be able to use this phrase today. Would be my simple response. Charlie, you had a question as well?
Yeah, so I have another possibility, which is that the original meaning of this might have been lost. The black-headed people was the term that was used for the ancient people of Sumer or Shinar. And that was the term they used for themselves in their own language, and was also the term that was used in Akkadian, which was used as late as the Assyrians. But by the time the Mishnah, that language had been completely lost, and the reference would have been completely lost. So this would be an interesting thing for an academic to look like. If we really believe the Torah Shabbal Pei, it's possible that this is part of the Torah Shabbal Pei that might have been lost over the millennia.
Very interesting theory. Very interesting theory. I have nothing, no comments on it other than to say that's an interesting theory. So
yeah, it would have been known to Avraham Avinu, and it would have been known in First Temple times.
100%. So that would make it, if that were the case, then one could imagine that this kind of concept would be coming down that it refers to, effectively not only that in this case, it would refer to all, Middle Eastern men
From,
that are
from that
all
part of
Middle
Mesopotamia,
Eastern
yeah,
population.
yeah,
And
population.
that effectively what has been, what is it's been effectively redefined to, when we say the Middle Eastern population, we're really saying is we mean the male population as opposed to the women and children. All right. Next one is Hanoder min Yulodim. If you say that you're not going to benefit from those who were born, mutter binoladim, you're allowed to benefit from those who are going to be born. If min hanoladin, if you say that you are not benefiting from those who are born, so asr min hayulodin. So then you are even prohibited to benefit from those who were already born. So Rabbi Meir mater af bilodim. Rabbi Meir says that you're even able to benefit from those who are already born. Now, when Gemara is going to ask the question, I don't understand if you can benefit from even those who are already born, and you can benefit from those who are going to be born. Who couldn't you benefit from if you say noladim? So the Gemara will reread this phrase and make it clear that Rabbi Meir is saying that when you say noladim, those who are born, it's going on the future and not the past. But that no, when you say noladim, as the Chachamim are coming to explain the Tanakama, because they're the same opinion, that in fact, when one says noladim, one is saying when those who are born, it means any creature that its nature is to be born, and we'll define what born means in the Gemara. So okay, so now let's take a look. So L'Rebbe Meir lo mi by noladim. If we say that you're not allowed to benefit, that you can even benefit from those who are already born, well, that implies that you can certainly benefit from those who are going to be born. Elamiman usur. Well, in that case, who's going to be forbidden to this person? So chasuri mechsera v'hachiktani. So we should reread our Mishnah as follows: Hanoder min hayilodim. If you prevent yourself from those who are already born, mutter binoladim, you can benefit from those who are going to be born. Min hanoladim, if you prevent yourselves from those who are born, usar bayilodim, you're prohibited to benefit even from those who are already born. Rabbi Meir Omer af hanoder min hanoladim mutter biyilodim, that even those who are permitted, even those who prohibit themselves from those who are born, are allowed to benefit from those who are already born. So as a result, ki hechi denoder min hayolodim mutter binoladim. Just like those who prohibit who say that they're not going to benefit from those who are already born, are permitted to benefit from those who have not yet been born. So so now that we've explained it that way, so Amar le Rav Papa la Abaye, Rav Papa says to Abaye, Lememra de noladin misyal dan mashma. Doesn't that imply that noladin means that they're going to be born in the future? Elamiyata. But one second, we have in a couple of weeks' time, at the end of Sefer Bereshis, when Yaakov comes and sees Yosef, he says, Shnei banecha hanoladim lecha be'eretz Mitzrayim. He refers to the two children, namely Ephraim and Menashe, who were noladim in Egypt. Well, noladim in that case is certainly past. So hachinami de isyal danhu. So as a result, doesn't that show that noladim means, are you going to say that there as well, the term noladim means those born in the future? It can't be. It means those who are already born, namely Ephraim and Menashe. So in second, so the Gemara asks back, "Ve'ela my yelidu mashma." You're going to tell me that noladim means only those who are already born? One second, we've got another quote. This one's from Malachim, where it talks about the future of the kingship of David, and it says, "Diksiv hine ven nolad." There will be a child born, lebeit David, Yoshiyahu shmo, and his name will be Yoshiyahu. And Hachanami Dahava, you want to tell me that he was already born? That's not true. His own grandfather Menashe had not yet been born. So as a result, he certainly wasn't born. So Ela mashma hachi umashma hachi. The bottom line is that some terms can be used for multiple purposes. They can be used for this, they can be used for that. And the answer is, and so what's the answer? Nedarim halech achar lashon b'nei adam. And the bottom line is that we follow the particular common use of those particular people. And so the point that the Mishnah is saying is that at the time of the Mishnah, the term noladim, according to the Tanakama, was used about everybody, whether born in the future or born in the past. And according to Rabbi Meir, it was only about those born in the future. And we'll just read one more line so we can we begin tomorrow with the Mishnah at the top of Daf Lamed Aleph. So so that it means anybody who his nature is to be born. So la'apukim mai, what does that come to exclude? La'apukim dagim va'ofos, to exclude those who are not born through a traditional through a live birth, but rather have eggs. So as a result, it excludes fish and birds. And so tomorrow, God willing, we'll pick up with the next Mishnah and discuss continuing this concept of definitional Mishnayos and discuss what does it mean when we say that those who rest on Shabbos. Is that only Jews? Is that somebody else? That's the question that we'll talk about, God willing, tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, same time, God willing, 7:45. Look forward to seeing you all then.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, we will probably, for those who want to be in person, we will meet in the second floor Beit Midrash, God willing.
Okay, thanks. Nice to learn from you. Bye.
And a very happy Thanksgiving.
Yep, you too.